So here we are. It is over. HasLab Victory Saber is finally done. It is backed. All the tiers have been unlocked. And that is that. So what are we going to do today? We are going to look back at this journey, all the things that transpired from its announcement up until the end, looking at all the stuff that was discussed, comparing it to the past, because Hasbro obviously has learned something from this experience, especially considering they learned from the Unicron experience. And we're going to be comparing to that also. We're going to be looking at numbers and comparing stuff. And just what is this going to mean moving forward now for those that backed this? Now, Victory Saber ended last night, literally 1 minute before the stroke of midnight, October 10th. And it ended with 22,706 backers of the original expected number of 11,000. Now then, it was a journey in itself, because when the announcement first came, August 27th, 2021, during a Fan First Friday, the speculation that I had was it's going to get backed, but it was overpriced and it was going to be a bit of a tough journey because of that. And considering that the window in order to back it was pretty much slightly less than that of Unicron. And that's something we'll just kind of go a little backwards here. So when we first got Unicron, when Unicron was announced on July 15th of 2019. And the expected closing deadline was originally going to be August 31st of 2019, 47 days, pretty much. There was 47 days that you could back Unicron initially. Keep in mind, HasLab's Victory Saber had 44 days to be backed, and it actually didn't have an extension. But Unicron had a unique scenario, and this is the thing I keep bringing up, is that Unicron was significantly more expensive, first of all, 575 USD, and it just was even more depending on what, if you were not in the United States regions, it could just be even more. But just that alone, it was an expensive thing, and it was announced pretty much the day after TFCon Toronto. So a lot of the hardcore collectors who make the travels to conventions, hotel, plane tickets, gas money, dealer room spending, buying the exclusives that weekend if that was your fancy, food, they clearly, coming out of TFCon that Saturday into that Monday morning of the announcement, had a lot on their credit card bill. So that really, in a lot of ways, probably hurt a lot of the hardcore collectors that made that trip to TFCon. Because if you went to TFCon, you probably were the kind of person that probably would have bought a Unicron. You're kind of in that same bubble in a lot of ways. So that really hurt it a lot, combined with a lot of other drama that was going on, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but third-party stuff and it just being, surprised at the last second with this whole HasLab thing. So they essentially pushed it back to October 6th, and that gave it an extra 36 days for a grand total of almost 2.5 months for Unicron to get backed. And that was that. Unicron apparently at that point got backed, and I still to this day feel that, the numbers are still kind of bizarre, because even with Star Saber, at least we actually have a number of how much this finished at. Still to this day, Hasbro's just like, oh yeah, 15,000 plus. That's the number they give. And that is that. And, and then of course, after that was backed, with all the drama, either people were either loving it or they were extremely hating the item. They were not going to change their stance. If they didn't buy it, they probably hated it. If they bought it, they probably loved it. If they bought it and then they regretted it, then they hated it. And then there was the third party guys with Cell and everything that was going on with that. It was a mess. But when it was all said and done, they were like, okay, we're going to put it into production. We're going to give you updates, little updates here and there, showing you from the factory and little things. They kept us they kept us in the know of what's going on. Of course, during all of this, was the big V, so there was a slowdown too that kind of happened with that, was the expectation. So a lot of people were working from home and doing the updates from there. It was a very different environment than what we were normally used to. Even though this HasLab thing for Transformers was a first for us, it was a first for us in a big V virus kind of world. March, April 2021, some people got it in February, but March, April 2021, Unicron finally showed up. So 17 months after the final day of the backing. So 17 months wait, pretty much, a month and a some change, a year and a half or a year or some change, pretty much, to get your Unicron. And that was that. Yeah, sure, there was drama afterwards. People were complaining about this and that, and the quality and the paint and da-da. But that's a whole other story. And the secondary market, well, like I said, it was a unique situation. It was an expensive product. It was crazy, and that was expected of it. Hasbro originally planned to only get 8,000 backers for this to make it happen, which would have netted them $4 million, and that would have been that. But of course, assuming that these numbers are correct, they got 15,000 plus, which made them about $8 million or $8.6 million. So they did well. Let's get to Victory Saber, which is our primary topic. So, like I said, Victory Saber was announced on August 27th, 2021. We had a total of 44 days to back this. No extensions, at least not initially. That's, if there probably was low numbers, maybe they would have done an extension, but they didn't need to do an extension, and that probably would have added to a little bit of the transparency of the numbers here. So 44 days were only needed. The plan is to kind of do some kind of big announcement at New York Comic-Con, which oddly enough, they didn't do anything. There wasn't even a panel by Hasbro at New York Comic-Con. It was going to end that weekend. So there was 3 toy panels at New York Comic-Con. There was one that was Transformer related, but it was actually done by Diamond Distributing and their licensing with their Diamond toys because of the mini-mates that they were doing. So actually not really related to directly Hasbro released product. So what's the numbers with Victory Saber? So the plan was, again, August 27th, and the closing date would be October 10th, which was last night. So essentially just a couple days less than what the initial Unicron deadline would have been before that extension was added to Unicron. And Hasbro said, well, when this is said and done, we aim to have this in your hands February 2023, which is technically a month less than the time it took Unicron, because Unicron started showing up 17 months after the fact. This one would say that you'd be getting it as of today in 16 months. So February 2023 is the estimated planned date. Now, what was the numbers here? So the plan was to reach 11,000 to get it backed. They managed to pull that off on September 29th, 11 days before it was supposed to end. They unlocked the first tier, which was the V-Lock cannon and the 2 blast accessories in green that were more, I guess, outward blasts, because there's 4 different blast accessories. So the V-Lock cannon and the 4 green outward blast accessories was unlocked on October 6th, 4 days before it was supposed to be backed. They unlocked the second tier at 18,000 backers, which was supposed to be the stand, the very clear blue stand. And that one was supposed to be, it actually did get unlocked on October 8th, 2 days before it ended. And then finally, we got the last tier unlocked at 20,000, tier 3, which got us the other 2 blast accessories, which go for the base mode. They're more of a streamlined kind of green blast accessories, 2 of them, a shield, and 2 Micromasters of Holly and Fire, repaints of the siege molds. And those got unlocked on October 10th, on the very last day, 10 hours before it was supposed to end. Now, to compare those numbers, So like I said, for Unicron to be completely backed, they needed 8,000. If they hit that 8,000, they would make $4.6 million if it got backed Unicron. If Star Saber got backed at 11,000, they would only make just under 2 million. They make significantly less with Star Saber getting backed. And here's the crazy thing, even with the numbers that Star Saber made in the end, Star Saber ended up getting 22,673 backers, assuming these numbers are legit. Again, I'm going to believe that they are, but if they aren't, well, that's a whole other discussion. But assuming these numbers are legit, the 22,673 backers, that means Hasbro only made $4 million after it was all said and done. About $600,000 less than Unicron did just at his base backing. The truth of the matter is, if Unicron's numbers are correct at 15,000 plus, Unicron made, like I said before, $8.6 million. Easily more than double what Star Saber did. Now the argument is, of course, Star Saber is considerably less in cost than Unicron. He's a lot cheaper, so obviously it's a bigger molehill to climb, but it also shows that in terms of monetary numbers, there was less interest. And it's understandable. Unicron is Unicron and Star Saber is Star Saber. Both characters are awesome for different reasons, but Unicron really is the bigger mainstream star when it's all said and done. And Star Saber, I do feel there was a lot of FOMO, because I saw on that last day, in those last hours, a lot of people that had no interest in getting Star Saber, didn't even know who the character was, were picking it up just out of fear. And that was that. And the question kept being proposed to me, should I get a second one to resell because of how much Unicron made in the secondary market? I feel that Star Saber is not going to be the big resale powerhouse that Unicron was, primarily because Unicron had all that drama and was way more expensive, and by the time it was all said and done, even people who did want to buy Unicron didn't have the money to buy Unicron. And that's why they ended up buying it in the secondary market at upsale prices, where everyone that I feel that really wanted to get Star Saber, not the people who were sitting on the fence, but people who legitimately wanted it, they got it because it wasn't that expensive. The truth of the matter is with HasLab Star Saber is there's masterpieces that we get in retail that are more expensive than this Star Saber. So when it's all said and done, this was kind of a no-brainer for the people that wanted it. And for the people that were on the fence, they ultimately did it in the end when the last couple days came out of fear. So to think that you're going to then be able to flip it for big profit, I don't know. That's something where I could be wrong. The market is going to be the real answer, and we'll find out in February of 2023 when these start showing up in hand, how many people are going to care about it in that amount of time. Again, 17 months from now, how many people are going to care about this Star Saber? In 17 months from now, what if all of a sudden Hisashi Yuki gets his dream to finish the Star Saber Masterpiece project and a Victory Leo piece comes out in that 17 months? Imagine what that would do to the market then, if there's a Masterpiece version. I mean, there already is a third-party one out there, but I said it in the stream, if a Masterpiece version of Victory Leo came out, they're going to probably do the same thing they did with Sunstreaker, where they did Masterpiece Sunstreaker, and because Masterpiece Sunstreaker came out, they were like, oh, well, let's reissue Sideswipe, because that way the brothers could be together on the shelves again, and people could have that pairing. For sure, if they ever do an official Masterpiece Victory Leo, they'll reissue Star Saber and probably give him some extra stuff too on top of it, much like they did with the Lambor, aka Sideswipe, just to make it worth people's while to make that purchase again. And again, all the engineering and development is there. So we shall see. Like I say, we shall see. So this is it, more or less. It's backed. It's done. It's happening. The credit cards have been charged. And now it's just a matter of waiting. and we'll see what happens. We'll see how the market reacts to it. We'll see how people feel about it when they get it in hand. It's something where there's still probably more of a conversation to have, because Unicron had development changes throughout the lifespan from the final backing up until it being in hand, whether it be color differences, plastic differences, hues, even the little extras that were included had to be changed at some point. So probably maybe something will be changed with Star Saber along the way too, from what we think to what will be the final product. I can't confirm that, but again, we always look to the past to figure out the future, and this is another case of that. The only thing that I will say is this. I was kind of hoping that Hasbro would have some kind of final Gambit announcement on the very last day of one extra bonus, and there really wasn't anything. There wasn't any final day big push hype, so that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird that they didn't do that, but I think it's because ultimately in the end they got their money. It got sold, it got done, and that is that. So that was the journey of HasLab Victory Saber. And it was a bit of a rocky one. Kind of really, it got all its business done in the last 10 days, pretty much, more or less. And I'm pretty sure Hasbro's going to learn from this. And whatever will be next will probably be more so in that number frame and that bubble than another big bombastic product. So people that are saying, oh, I want Primus, it's probably not going to be something like Unicron, because, you know, comparing the numbers here, did Unicron make more? Assuming the numbers are legit, yes, considerably more. But it also was a much more rocky journey, where this one was a rocky journey too, but at the end of the day, it all kind of sealed the deal in considerably less time than Unicron in the last 10 days. But both of them, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, are something that I'm more curious about what its 5-year, 10-year price sticker value will be in that long run. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. I know it's going to be heated as always. It's always like that when it comes to the money and everyone's wallets. But let me know what you think, and we'll talk about this in the future again.